Welcome to our Red Hat Government Symposium Executive Insight Series. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're here with Mark Herter, Secrets Manager Specialist at CyberArk. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, and thanks for having me here today, Wyatt.
So let me start by asking, where have you seen examples of how the federal government has really looked to data to fuel digital transformation?
Data fuels innovation inherently. Everything that you see with digital transformations today is really related to the input of the data and then taking that to make better informed decisions. The data is going to tell you where the government's falling short in providing for their citizens as well as for the warfighters. It's going to provide information about citizen customers. It's going to help direct them to the right resources based on the location and need. And I think the VA is a phenomenal example of this. The VA is going through an active digital transformation, and you can see that in the way that veterans access their medical records and how they receive care by leveraging the modern technologies that the VA has implemented. In years past, everything was papers. It was in a folder. You had to go. Wait times at the VA were, a hot button topic. And that care is improving, and the level of service they're improving or that they're delivering to their veterans is improving. And I believe that's a direct result of their investment and a successful digital transformation.
That's a great example. Well, next, how has open source technology played an important and maybe increasing role as the federal government has faced critical challenges like the COVID-19 response?
Yeah, open source allows agencies to leverage the latest technology. There's a seemingly unlimited set of resources that are going to be able to pursue faster and more effective remedies to the COVID-19 pandemic. Because the open source community is, it's driven by a community, there's hackathons where people from all different backgrounds and skill levels come together from across the globe to contribute to data aggregation and presentation of data so that government organizations and citizens alike can make better and more informed decisions. There's lots of examples of how this has really enabled government agencies around the globe, not in just the US. The Singapore government, they actually open sourced their contact tracing protocol, and this was leveraged by the Trace Together app. Universities in America, such as the University of Pennsylvania, have open source products that can do things like estimate impacts on communities. And the government can take these open source tools and they can use them to make more informed decisions, such as what's safe to do, what kind of recommendations can be made for organizations, and they can use localized data for that. So what might be safe in my home state in Alabama might not be as safe in another state or vice versa.
Well, speaking of safety, how does open source also enable better cybersecurity for agencies?
Yeah, good question. And the thing about open source software is that community that's behind it. So the answer really derives from the same benefit of open source software, is that you have this huge volume of people that work on and they contribute to a product or project that they're passionate about. And this leads towards a community working towards a common goal, which is a more secure product. You can leverage the experience of this development community, and the product's then going to service the needs of more agencies, because with that varying background, there's varying experiences, varying needs that they've seen in their industry and their sector that can be transitioned to government organizations that provide varying services as well. Also, when you open source code, there's white hat security groups and researchers, and they'll inspect the code and test it for vulnerabilities. And then they can also deliver fixes and changes in a very expedient manner. And finally, open source code also gives agencies the ability to obtain products and implement them in their environment very quickly and cheaply without any sort of financial obligation. Now, the one thing that I do want to caution about that, though, is that once you do select an open source product and it becomes critical to your environment, you should certainly secure and pursue some sort of enterprise support agreement so that these things that are critical to the operation of the organization can be supported by experts in the event that you don't have that in-house.
Well, that certainly makes sense. And then maybe lastly, Mark, what trends or technology developments should federal agencies be paying attention to now and in the coming months?
There's so many different aspects of digital transformation that's introducing changes across both commercial and government organizations alike. But there's really two that I want to point to today that I think are going to accelerate the digital transformation of organizations, and it's going to change the way that business has been done, in the past, and it's going to change rapidly. And I really think that you're going to see this with both RPA and low code and no code tool developments, or tool development suites. Both of these technologies and capability sets, they're really going to accelerate that by allowing companies to move faster than they've ever moved before. Business or community developers are going to be able to contribute to the digitization of the business and automating tasks that were previously manual. And you're even going to see applications get cranked out faster. So those skilled developers that had to write everything line by line, they're going to deliver capability at an even faster pace. So securing the processes is really going to be key to delivering a secure, resilient, and available application. In all types of conversations that I have, I always use the phrase security at inception. So I would encourage federal agencies to adopt these practices, but adopt them with security in mind, and make sure that when they do roll these things out, that they can pass muster, they can get out into production so that they can deliver these features securely, safely, and effectively to their customer, whether that's the warfighter or whether that's the American public.
Well, Mark Herta, thank you so much for sharing your observations and insights with our audience here at the Red Hat Symposium.
Thanks so much, Wyatt.